I thought that first 30 minutes was the worst Manchester United performance I have ever seen.
An absolute disgrace, that opening half an hour. There's no other word for it. It's no longer a surprise when they get beat. The problem goes deeper than the man in the dugout. It's not just about changing the manager. It needs a complete cleanse of that dressing room. Xerxes was the fall guy. Not sure I agree with the jeering of your own player, but I get the frustration. It's not his fault.
Joshua Xerxes was never going to be able to fit into this squad. I feel so sorry for him after what happened to him last night. I cannot get on the fans' back because I think it wasn't to do with Joshua Xerxes. I think it was to do with years of pent-up frustration.
This is not about managers now because Ten Hag tried to do the right thing and he just wasn't able to. At what point are they going to turn around and say this is the players?
It's a complete mess.
They cannot keep going the way they're going. They need new players. They need fresh blood. They need energy in that team. I mean, they look hopeless. The Manchester United fans need to realise that it's going to get worse before it gets better. Yes, it's Premier League All Access, and it's Sam Matterface with Alex Crook and Scott Minto. Merry Christmas, everyone. Does anyone know what day it is?
No idea.
Tuesday?
It's a New Year's Eve. That's all I need. I go by like the dates or the names of the days. I don't go by days at this time because I get very confused. I always have this thing in my head psychologically that Christmas Eve is Friday, New Year's Eve must also be a Friday, and New Year's Day is a Saturday, and Christmas Day is a Saturday, right? And Boxing Day is a Sunday. It just makes sense in my head, and it's always like that. So I get very confused about days as a result of it. Did everyone have a good Christmas?
Yeah, I had a really good Christmas, thank you. Very family related. Went to Winter Wonderland yesterday, which was good, and I've now...
Oh no.
Well, do you know what? It was really good, but I've now put in a request to talkSPORT. Can I have a contract for the next 38 years just to pay off?
Yes, you might need one. A hot chocolate is as much as a house in Bermondsey. Alex Crook has been ill. Oh dear, where's the violins? Are you okay? Are you feeling better?
Not really after watching that game at Old Trafford last night, but health-wise, yeah, I'm probably the best I've felt for a few days. So thank you for all the kind messages, not least from Mr. Matterface.
Well, of course, I've been looking after you over this period, as I always do. I love to ensure that you are in full health. Did you watch any Christmas movies over the break? Because I consumed. The producer said to me, "Have you watched any Christmas movies this year?" And I was like, "Well, I haven't actually. I've been doing too much football." But I actually realised I did watch one on Amazon Prime. I watched that Red One thing with the rock guy, which was pretty lame. And I went to the cinema to watch Wicked. Now, I did like Wicked because I'm into all that theatrical stuff. And I love the little choreography. What about you?
Yeah, I watched Red One as well. It was okay. It's not Home Alone Elf levels of Christmas
It's
movies.
not Home Alone.
So yeah, watched a little bit of Elf. Santa Claus the movie is an all-time classic for me. So I watched that quite early in December. So yeah, got my festive feel. Gavin and Stacey was a standout moment of.
I haven't seen it yet, so don't tell me what happens at the end. But I did also watch Home Alone 2: Lost in New York. I watched that as well. Now I'm thinking about it. But of course, the best Christmas movie of all time is Die Hard. Scott?
Well, do you know what? I've watched about half a dozen movies in the last week or so, and I think that's about the same amount as I've done the previous year because I just don't seem to get time. You talk about Die Hard. Carry On was a very similar sort of Christmas Eve movie.
I haven't watched that yet. That's with the guy Jason Bateman, right?
Yes. Yeah. Very good movie, actually. Die Hard-like in a way, at the time of the year, airport bomb going on, that type of thing. I actually went to the cinema and saw Paddington 3.
Paddington Peru, that is, isn't it?
Yes. I didn't know, though, that was a third one, so it goes to show I'm not exactly a massive Paddington fan. And do you know what? I saw Tina, the musical, which was very, very good. I'd highly recommend that to anyone.
Okay, all right. Well, there you go. There was a few recommendations for any Manchester United fan out there who actually wants to see something good this festive period. Let's get into all of the action now, starting on Monday night with Newcastle continuing their strong run of form by making it light work of a very hapless Manchester United at Old Trafford. Let's focus on Newcastle first of all, Scott, because they were absolutely terrific, I thought, in the first half. That midfield trio of Joe Linton, Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes have clicked into gear. When I spoke to Eddie Howe afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
I'd said to him, we'd had a few conversations this year where you'd complained about the lack of rhythm and intensity in your team. Well, you've got it back now. And he went, yeah, we've got it back now. They are really up to speed.
Yeah, do you know what? It wasn't that long ago where there was a lot of pressure coming into games. I don't think within the Newcastle fan base for Eddie Howe and his job, but I just think the outside pressure. And then suddenly it's bang, 5 wins in a row. And for me, listen, I was sitting there watching, having a nice little glass of red with my dad, who comes over every now and again and watches some games with me. After 15 minutes, it was 1-0. And I was like, this is men against boys. And a stat came up where it was like United had no shots on or off target, no touches in the opposition box, and it was 30-something% possession. This could have been 4 by half time. And I know we'll come on to United in a second, but in terms of Newcastle, I thought they were just sensational. They've returned now to how they were a couple of seasons ago, where they finish in the top 4.
I think they're better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tonali coming in, I think, has released Bruno Guimaraes to do what he wants to do, but they've also got this kind of understanding where if one goes, the other can sit. So it's not just it's a very fluid sort of midfield three. Joe Linton, I think, is better as a midfielder than being out wide. I think his physicality can be used a lot more, and they just completely overran Manchester United in every single way. And for me now, and I said at the start of the season, and there were a few poo-pooing me, I said, I'm telling you what, if Newcastle get it right, they've got a great chance for top 4. And now they're just starting to get in great form at the moment.
They've got a great chance for top 4 or 5, because it will be top 5, I think, now. I think we've calculated the fact that there's a 97.8% chance of getting into the Champions League if you finish in the top 5 places in England this year, which is great for us and great for next year as well. But I want to focus, and I will get to Manchester United. I know he's sitting there chomping at the bit. We're going to let him go in just a second. But I want to focus on another player who I think has really come to the fore this season for Newcastle United, and that's Lewis Hall.
Yeah.
What a great 2024 he has had. And as a left back yourself, I mean, I can only be full of praise for him, because last year he was in and out of the team. England didn't have a left back, but they didn't turn to him. Now they have, and Newcastle are playing him every single week, and he is delivering in spades.
Yeah, and as a left back yourself, Sam, because I know you were, although a right-footed left back.
Only a slightly different level to you, Scott.
Only slightly. Now, do you know what? I heard on commentary, and I actually could, because I was coming back late from Winter Wonderland. I was 10 minutes behind in the first half, and then caught up in the second. So I listened to your commentary in the second half, but the TV's in the first half, and they touched on who is it, the centre half that could come back in, Botman, and they said, well, Dan Burn could possibly go to left back, and I thought straight away, absolutely no chance. Lewis Hall has nailed that, and not only has he nailed that position for Newcastle, he's got a great opportunity for England as well. He really has. He's very good defensively. He's actually a sort of a midfielder by trade, but he knows that role. He's got football intelligent enough to know how to position himself. And it took time for him to get regular in the Newcastle side and for Eddie Howe to find him his best position. But boy, he's definitely found him now. And I know there was a little bit of a deflection on the goal, but I just thought even just his first touch was really good. And his idea of what he wanted to do was right. He just looks a fantastic left back right now. And yeah, for me, I'm not surprised you brought him up. And we haven't even mentioned Alexander Isak yet, but each individual players are now playing really well in the team that they've got that's gelling really well. And tell you what, watch out for Newcastle right now.
Yeah, they're in great vein of form. 5 wins in a row. Isak has scored in each of the last 6 games. It's 11 in 11 in the league for him. He took his goal well, but he should have had more, actually. He should have had at least 2 more goals in the game and completed the hat-trick. And the game should have been over by half-time. In fact, probably the game should have been over within the first half an hour. The first half an hour of that game at Old Trafford, and I sent a text message. I sent several text messages during that half-time saying I thought that first 30 minutes was the worst Manchester United performance I have ever seen. Crook, can you tell me I'm wrong?
No, I concur tenfold. It was an absolute disgrace, the opening half an hour. There's no other word for it. I've got past the stage of anger when it comes to Manchester United because, as I tweeted last night, it's no longer a surprise when they get beat. In fact, it's a surprise when they pick up a positive result. But I was raging with the lack of effort, the lack of commitment, the lack of tactical awareness, just the lack of ability amongst that Manchester United team. And I do think Ruben Amorim, I'm not going to throw another United manager under the bus because actually all this proves is what I've been saying for years. The problem goes deeper than the man in the dugout. It's not just about changing the manager. It needs a complete cleanse of that dressing room. But he did get his team selection wrong. You can't line up against a Newcastle team with the energy that they have, with a midfield combination with a combined age of 168.
64.
In Eriksen and Casemiro. That was never going to work. Xerxes was the fall guy. Not sure I agree with the jeering of your own player, but I get the frustration. It's not his fault. It's whoever recruited him. We believe he's been pinned on Dan Ashworth. They would say that as he's exiting the building, but he is just not Manchester United calibre. They took him off. Kobe Mainoo comes on. Mainoo's not been playing brilliantly in recent weeks, but he was head and shoulders the best United player. But it's easy to play, isn't it, when you're 2-0 down and you're getting battered? There's no real jeopardy because even if United had scored one of those chances, Newcastle would have gone out the other end and scored again. It's a complete mess. And do you know what? And then this is going to sound really melodramatic. I didn't sleep very well last night. I'm genuinely worried about where this football club goes from here. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. Give me the answer. What on earth are they going to do?
Well, the answer is clear the decks and start again. And I told you what my viewpoint was, and I don't know if Scott feels the same thing, but my viewpoint has always been, since Amorim came in, that he will at some stage dip into the youth ranks and promote early players that he thinks will fit into this system, and he will get rid of some big hitters. He has to do that. There has to be some level of investment. Even if it means they take a hit on terms of PSR, they may just have to take it. They may have to take it on the chin because they cannot keep going the way they're going. They need new players. They need fresh blood. They need energy in that team. I think actually the summer is going to be really key because he's going to get to work with the players on a more consistent basis. He says he's had 4 training sessions, but I mean, they look hopeless. They look absolutely hopeless last night. And the solution is not going to be a short-term one. There's going to be more pain. In fact, I asked him last night, do Manchester United fans need to realise that it's going to get worse before it gets better? And he said, yeah, we've got tough games coming up. They've got Liverpool next. They've got Arsenal next. It's going to be hellish. He's not going to change the system, Scott. And he's pretty clear on that. He said it to me last night. He said, I'm going to play this way because if I now change, then I lose everything. I have to believe in my style. He said he actually makes quite a few tweaks during games and before games for each match, who should press when, who should move at certain junctures, and different little tactical tweaks. But clearly the framework is staying the same.
Yeah, and look, we can all look at it and say 3 at the back, is it working? But I think he's right in saying that there are different tweaks and different questions that he's asking to do, and it is not easy. I mean, this is incredible what we're watching right now. This is Manchester United, who is one of the biggest clubs in the world, if not the biggest. I personally think Madrid. But where they were, the team that I played against with Beckham, Keane, Scholes, Giggs, all those top-class players, this is just a million miles away. And now even the R word is coming into it, with relegation, just because of where they are in the table. Look, I watched post-match. I don't always get to I only just watch the games, but I watched post-match what Jamie Carragher was saying on Sky, and I thought it was a really good, brilliant piece of analysis of what he was saying about why it wasn't working. The only place where I disagree with him is that he's saying he blames the manager for the back 3 dropping off. I personally think he's telling them to push up. I know his sporting team, what he wanted his centre-halves to do. There's some times where players are in such a mindset and such a rut that actually they just default to dropping off. And if you watch the sporting side that he had, I know it's the Portuguese league, but the principles are still the same of what he wants his players to do. He wants them to be on the front foot, even without the ball and even from the back. And these United players, because they're in such a mental rut right now, are just dropping off. And you talk about the change. absolutely they need to do a massive change, and Crookie's spot on. This is not about managers now, because Ten Hag tried to do the right thing and he just wasn't able to. At what point are they going to turn around and say this is the players? But you guys have been saying about PSR is a problem. So how do you get rid of these players who are a massive amount of
That's
problems?
why you've got to go for the youth team. That's why you've got to dip into the youth team. Toby Collier should have played last night. It's easy to say with hindsight, and he said that to me as well. He said, yeah, you're right. It's easy to say with hindsight. He also said last night, and I thought this was key, he said, I'm not afraid to talk about relegation. I said to him, I tried to give him an answer. I know you weren't talking about relegation when you said survival last week, but how concerned are you? And he went, I am concerned. And he actually said, I'm saying this because this club needs a shock. There's been too much over the course of the last few years where we've just allowed it to drift. We need a shock. And he was pretty forthright. He was in the press conference after I'd spoken to him saying, they need a jolt. The players need to realise this is massive. We need to change.
Yeah, I agree with that. But we've been saying that for some time, and miraculously, they've still managed to win trophies. Eric Ten Hag still won the FA Cup, still beat Man City in the final with this utterly abysmal group of players last season. He still won the League Cup the year before that and got them in the Champions League. So I think all that did really was paper over the cracks, and that's probably the point that Ruben Amorim is making. But I want to talk about the brain's trust. There was a point last night when the camera panned to those talking heads in the stand. Jason Wilcox, who's had an incredible rise from running Man City's youth development to taking on the role of sporting director at Southampton. They're bottom of the Premier League last time I checked, and now here he is in charge of Manchester United's transfer policy. Omar Barada, who obviously has that proven track record at City, and the cycling fella. The decisions they've made have been a big factor in this. Sticking with Eric Ten Hag in the summer, not having the courage of their convictions, when, as you said time and again, Sam, clearly they didn't think Eric Ten Hag was the right man. Not only did they stick with him, they gave him a new contract, which meant it cost him more money to pay him off. They lavished him with new signings that clearly don't fit the profile that Ruben Amorim wants. Financially, it's a disaster. And you talk about PSR, a lot of it's been their own making. That's before you even get onto the Dan Ashworth situation. They pay millions in compensation. They spend months waiting for him to end his gardening leave, and they fire him within 5 months. And this week, we find out not only are they cutting donations to former players, they're cutting donations to their own charity. Ineos are a disgrace, the way they've run the club for the last year.
Well, Ineos may well be that, and I can understand the frustration with it, but Ineos are picking up the pieces of 20 years of Glazer rule, and they needed...
They've done well to make it worse.
Let's not absolve them of any blame here and forget that they put them in that situation in the first place. This is a mess of the Glazers making that other people were trying to sort out, right? This is 20 years of lack of investment, lack of foresight, quite happy to cream off the top, using Manchester United and their mega store as a cash machine. This is what the Glazers have done to this club over the course of 20 years. Ineos may be making the tough decisions and looking like the bad guys now, and maybe they are making bad decisions. Maybe they're making horrible, tough, brutal decisions, but maybe they have to make them. Maybe they have to make them because Manchester United are in such a dreadful place, put there after 2 decades of a family that didn't buy the club, used somebody else's money to buy the club, and then creamed off the top for 20 years.
The only thing I'd say to that, Sam, and you're not wrong, timing, to do it when on the field it's so poor and getting worse right now. The optics are not good to be making those decisions that Crookie's just been saying. You have to wait until they're at least a little bit on the up. I'm sure from a financial point of view, they can afford to do that, to make those type of decisions off the pitch while everything that's happening like this on the pitch, it just looks an absolute mess. And people can throw, mud at Ineos in the way that they did at the Glazers right now.
One of the things that they have done is they've recruited bad players. I mean, they've moaned about the recruitment situation that they inherited, but actually, I mean, what on earth are they doing? I mean, Joshua Zirkzee was never going to be able to fit into this squad. I feel so sorry for him after what happened to him last night. I cannot get on the fans' back because I think it wasn't to do with Joshua Zirkzee. I think it was to do with years of pent-up frustration. And there was, I even felt that they felt conflicted because they sort of cheered the substitution, then sort of jeered it and booed it. And then there was sort of like a bit of a two C's meeting of, boos and jeers, and it felt a bit awkward. And it was awkward because they didn't know whether to boo the decision or to boo him, or they were just furious about what they'd seen in the opening half an hour. I don't think he should take that as personally as he clearly did. I felt sorry for him. I thought he did brilliantly going down the touchline, composing himself, coming back and organising himself and sitting on the bench. I thought that was very brave of him, but it's very difficult to see a way back for that young player. 36 million quid, what do you do next? He's been linked with Juventus in the January transfer window. Are they going to loan him out? I don't know, but it doesn't fit into the system.
The bottom line is you hit the nail on the head. One word: recruitment. Ultimately, it's all about the players. That's the number one. And then it's about getting the right manager in place. Now, Ruben Amorim has come in and he must be looking and thinking, oh my God, what have I got here? And you're right. Xerxes, one example. For me, look, I will always say fans have the right to do what they want to do. They pay their hard-earned money. They can boo it as much as they want, but it doesn't help anybody. It really doesn't. And I was sad on behalf of Xerxes, and in the little WhatsApp group, I was kind of defending him, not because from a football point of view, but just from a human point of view, because how does he then get back when he's feeling? No football player wants to get taken off in the first half. And anybody in that team could have got taken off in that first half. So I thought he was a little bit of a scapegoat in that sense. But even just from a purely football point of view, he's not a good enough number 9. He's not a number 9. I agree with Ruben Amorim. I said it again in the Wolves game when I did work for talkSPORT. He's not a number 9. But then those sort of 2 number 10s, he's probably about 5th on the list. It was a complete waste of money and a really bad recruitment for some, again, just years and years of hundreds of millions of pounds money misspent.
Well, he's not 5th on the list anymore. He's probably a little bit higher up because Marcus Rashford has dropped down the pecking order. He got into the squad on Monday night but wasn't used. What was your view on that, Crook?
Mixed, actually. During the game, probably at the height of my frustrations, I thought it was a little bit classless from the manager. If you're going to recall him, and obviously you knew there would be a fanfare and it would generate a lot of column inches and a lot of airtime, to then not bring him on when the team are playing so badly and you're in need of a goal, I felt like was potentially humiliating the player. I mean, it's pretty clear that he doesn't have a future at the football club. But then I looked a little bit deeper and you think, well, maybe if they are short of bodies and they don't have enough players to fill the bench, if they still don't pick Marcus Rashford, what's that going to do to his value in the market? I mean, his value is low anyway because it's an open secret that he wants out the football club, and United want him gone as well. I think he's actually enlisted multiple agencies, Marcus Rashford, or his entourage have anyway, to try and get him some kind of move. Whether that happens in January, I don't know. But yeah, it's a really difficult situation. He hasn't helped himself, Marcus Rashford, over the past few years. And interesting to hear our colleague Andy Mitten speaking on talkSPORT this week. And again, that's generated a lot of publicity, talking about the fact numerous managers have had issues with Marcus Rashford and what he gets up to off the pitch. We've been talking about that on this podcast for weeks and months, and now it's out in the public domain, so it's not a shock. So yeah, I guess in some ways Marcus Rashford and his decline is emblematic of the decline of the football club.
Yeah, I think it's a non-story, actually. I think the whole Rashford thing is sort of not irrelevant, but it's very much a side show to the main event. It's not Ruben Amorim's fault that this guy has got to a point where he is now irrelevant to the club. He's got to be moved on. He has to be, and that's I'm not disrespecting Marcus Rashford. He's had a great career of what he's done for England and for Manchester United and for local people. Fine, but it's not the story anymore. He just needs to move on. They need to move him on, and that's it. I don't think it was anything to do with humiliation or anything like that last night. They needed an extra body. Their other option was to call up kids from the youth team, and they weren't prepared to do that at this moment. So I think it was it's just a sideshow to the main event, really, and the main event was pretty troubling. Let's recap the rest of Monday's action now, starting with a huge result for Ipswich Town. Wow, finally up and running, Scott, at Portman Road, just in time for the new year. Liam Delap was sensational all night. I thought it was a terrific performance. The whole thing. He was, when I came back last night, I watched it, and I thought, wow, he's taken what Enzo Maresca has been saying about him, and he's said, right, yeah, I'm going to prove to you how great I am. He's been linked with Chelsea. He's been patted on the back by his former under-21 manager, and he delivered in spades last night. Although, I'm going to be a little bit provocative here. I thought it was a bit of a dive for the penalty.
A bit. I mean, I'm trying to take my Chelsea hat off here, and on behalf of for Ipswich, it's a great result, and I'm really pleased for them, and finally getting that home win. Chelsea will come on to in a sec, but Liam Delap, what a player, and I think he's had to drop down, and I really respect players who have to take again, with the greatest respect to Ipswich, a backward step to then move forward again. And I think even the most ardent Ipswich fans will say that if he carries on playing like that or Ipswich go down, then he will get the club a lot of money and still be a Premier League player. But my goodness me, I mean, first goal is always important, and Chelsea still need to be able to come back if they are title contenders, as some people try to put them in there. You and I haven't. But no, that was never a penalty for me. But a big win for Ipswich for sure, massive win. And again, just what we've been saying, let's see how Christmas, January, February goes for Chelsea. And within the space of 3 games, they're not title contenders anymore.
He reminds me a little bit of Victor Gyökeres at Sporting. He reminds me a little bit of Alexander Sorloth, but maybe a bit speedier. He is big, he's bulky, he's like a bull. He picks up the ball and he runs with it, and he causes defences all sorts of problems. He's a massive asset to Ipswich Town, and I think our good friend Terry Gibson said in the commentary last night that was a legendary performance from Liam Delap, and he doesn't say those things lightly. It does put them a point behind Ipswich in the race behind Wolves in the race to survive, and they're in with a chance. And there's a bit of a mix down there. And there's always one team, probably Manchester United, that drop like a stone and get involved in the relegation battle. Chelsea, I thought, were a little bit complacent last night. I saw the team, and Crook and I texted each other, and I said, I've not got a feeling about this. Crook called it the morning before and said that they would drop points. He dropped Nico Jackson. He dropped Robert Sanchez. I wonder whether or not he just took this a little bit lightly. What do you think, Crook?
I don't know about that. I think when you spend £1 billion on your squad, there's going to come a time in the season when you have to trust some of those fringe players. And Nkunku was billed as a bit of a saviour when he first joined the football club. Obviously, last season was written off by injury. He scored a lot of goals in the Conference League, albeit against very, very below standard sides. But you've got to give him a chance at some points. Nicholas Jackson was on 5 yellow cards. We've reached the cut-off point now where a 5th yellow card would have meant a suspension. Same for the goalkeeper, who's been booked a lot for time wasting this season. So I could see method to it. Cole Palmer still started the game. That would have been the big one for me. If you rested him, then I think maybe you'd have a point.
And he drew Christian Wharton into some great saves. That probably needs a mention as well, the fact that they changed the goalkeeper last night, Ipswich, and he performed brilliantly.
Yeah, he's been highly rated for a long time, Christian Wharton. I remember when he came through the ranks at Brighton. It's taken him a while to get to the top, but yeah, brilliant for him. So yeah, I don't know I think it's too easy to say it's complacency. I think Chelsea are just going for a patch at the moment where maybe it is catching up. Maybe there's not enough leaders, when the chips are down.
So what is it? So they're not ready. Is that what you're saying now? So you're changing your mind now? Okay, so you've gone from saying they're Premier League title contenders, they've got to be, to now suggesting that they're not ready. So which one is it? Have you flip-flopped already?
Well, they did have to be. They were the closest challengers to Liverpool at one stage, but that now goes to Nottingham Forest. But it does, I think, expose a flaw in the recruitment. When you spent £1 billion, we've talked about the goalkeeper, we talked about the lack of a number 9. That both came home to roost, arguably, last night. But also when your whole business model is just really built on players under a certain age, you're signing players with sell-on value. Where are the leadership qualities coming from when you're going through difficult periods? That's what Pochettino experienced at the end of last season, or start of last season, and maybe that's what Maresca is experiencing now.
Sam, to be honest with you, looking at the team, I mean, Jorgensen and Sanchez, for me, is not a difference, really. I think there is between Nkunku and Nicholas Jackson, but again, Cookie's absolutely right in saying when you spend that amount of money, you've got to rely sometimes on other players, and the reasons given is perhaps he didn't want suspension. The biggest one for me is Disasi and Gusto. I mean, I would not have Disasi at right back any day of the week, and if Gusto's fit, and Reece James obviously when he's fit as well. That's a big thing for me. So
He caused the problem as well last night.
absolutely. But the bigger picture here, and I've been saying this a lot on sort of talkSPORT, that the average age of the Premier League winners of the last decade has been 26.9. Champions League has been 27. Chelsea have an average age of 23.8. They've spent a lot of money. I understand what people are saying. If you spend that money, you've got to be in with a shout. But the bottom line is, and Cookie's right again about the lack of leaders, they're not ready yet. I mean, who really thought
3 years?
Who really thought they'd be title contenders this year at the start of the season?
No one.
So they're a year ahead of the game. They're learning, and Maresca's learning all the time. Next year, I think they'll be right up there. I really do. But this year, no. I'd still take top 4 even now and win the Conference League.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the other action from the weekend, starting with the leaders. West Ham were absolutely torn apart by Liverpool on Sunday. Easy as you like from Liverpool. They're top now and lead by 8 points. West Ham, I mean, I don't really understand what West Ham are doing. As far as I understand it, and me and Crook have been sort of talking about this on the show that we've been doing. We're sitting in for Jim and Simon this week. They're not going to sack him. They are not going to sack him because they think that they'll stay up. They don't think they're going to get relegated. They don't want to pay him off. They don't want to upset the apple cart. It's not necessarily that they think he's great and he's the saviour, but it's just going to cost them too much money. Why did they appoint him in the first place then? He's making puzzling decisions. The idea of playing Wan-Bissaka at left back and playing Emerson as a left winger when they've got Somerville in the team and Kudus in the team and Bowen and Ford, I just don't get it. I don't get it. You get it, Scott? I don't.
Look, on that particular decision, he's clearly tried to stop Salah, hasn't he? So he's put Wan-Bissaka, your best.
Did he do that?
No.
Did that happen?
No, he absolutely didn't. But that was the aim. I don't necessarily sort of throw everything at him for that, but we've been saying all season, even before he came, this is not anti-David Moyes. If you're going to have someone like him, then just keep Moisey and tell the fans this is where we're going to go down. Give the fans what they want. West Ham fans are not necessarily demanding European spots or whatever. They just want really exciting football. Then I think eventually, like most fans, they'll demand both exciting football and winning football. But just give them what they want. And it's a million miles from what they want. It really is. And I watched it and I actually thought in the beginning they did okay. They created some chances. Liverpool were the ones that were clinical. Luis Diaz had a little bit of luck, but you make your own luck. But then they just collapsed. And, this is not what a David Moyes side would do. Look, what I would point out is that David Moyes' side conceded 74 goals in the Premier League. Everyone thinks he's really good defensively. And look, don't get me wrong, he is. By the way, congratulations to him for the OBE.
Yes,
but
congratulations, David.
At the same time, that it wasn't as if they weren't shipping goals. But this is just there. And the West Ham fans want so much more than that. And to hear you say what you just said, they're not going down, they're not going to do this, they're just going to meander to the end of the season. Really? What's West Ham fans going to be thinking listening to that? It's a disgrace.
And Crook, we're not wrong here, right? This is a bit like the old Eric Ten Hag situation. You will sack him eventually. Yeah. You will move on from him eventually. But you're just wasting everybody's time between now and then. And also, if you let him go on through January, there's no chance of anybody else coming in and changing what is the dynamic in the squad either. So, I don't get it. I mean, I think the problem is that again, there's too many people that have an investment in that football club, but David Sullivan makes the ultimate choice.
Yeah, agreed. David Sullivan, who we know is loyal to managers. Which I guess in the modern game you have to praise that quality because it's a rare commodity when it comes to boardroom. But I think you also have to acknowledge when you've made a mistake. This was David Sullivan's appointment. We know that Tim Steidten, in particular, the sporting director, was pushing for Ruben Amorim. You look at his results at United, and West Ham fans might think we've had a narrow escape. Now that's a bit harsh, but what I'm saying is it was Sullivan who wanted Lopetegui.
He's turning already, Scott. He's turning already, Scott.
He was the cheaper option. There wasn't the massive compensation package. He didn't want quite such a big entourage as Amorim wanted, and that's the direction they went in. But you look at the signings, and you've highlighted it already, but the reluctance to use Somerville to me is bizarre, as you've already articulated. Jean-Claire Todibo was a player that a lot of Premier League clubs looked at, and they did background checks on his personality and decided maybe this is not the type of character you want in your dressing room. I think West Ham have already experienced that. He's had more than one fallout with Julian Lopetegui. They've been a bit unlucky with the Antonio situation, which has left them short of a number 9 because Fulkrug isn't yet fit enough for the Premier League. That looks a poor signing as well. So there's a lot that's gone wrong for West Ham. Graham Potter is waiting and willing to take the job until the end of the season initially, which was a surprise to me when I found that out because he's waited so patiently to come back in. I didn't really see the attraction of taking a short-term contract, but clearly he feels like there is something to work with at West Ham. But the deeper we go into that January transfer window, the deeper we go into the season, there's every chance, because it's Graham Potter, that he might change his mind. So they are wasting time. They're going to lose at Man City, even though City aren't, the City of old. And then they've got Villa away in the FA Cup, and they'll probably lose that as well. And then I think David Sullivan will have a decision to make.
Yeah, well, they're insisting they're not going to make it because they don't think they're going to go down. But let's see. I mean, I think results in the end will end up putting his hand behind his back. You did mention there Graham Potter and the possibility of him coming in. Would he be able to change it? Would he be able to make them more exciting? I mean, it'd be difficult to make them less exciting, wouldn't it? Let's focus a little bit on Liverpool. Trent Alexander-Arnold scoring the goal. First of all, Scott, did Mo Salah mean that little cheeky backheel nutmeg? Did he mean it? Because Danny Murphy says he didn't mean it. Danny Murphy said it was lucky.
Right, I'm glad he said that, because I who am I to tell him that Mo Salah didn't do a particular trick in the way that he might claim he did? My gut instinct was, and I'll take him away and then give him a little bit as well, where it wasn't meant, but his reaction to where the ball went was world class. I don't believe he meant that little touch to go. Did he go through the legs of whoever?
Yeah.
I don't believe he meant that. But his reaction to know where the ball was going was sensational. So, yeah, no, I agree with Danny.
Yeah. Quick word on Alexander-Arnold making that chatting sign to his ear. He was doing all this and whatever. What does it mean, Crook? What does it mean? Tell us the inside track.
Well, only he really knows. I've got to say both sides are keeping their cards relatively close to their chest when it comes to Alexander-Arnold. But I was told by a decent source when that story came out in Marca that he had agreed to join Real Madrid. Certainly that's not a decision that he's relayed to Liverpool at this moment in time. Talks continue. I think they're still hoping that he'll sign. And there are people close to Trent who are saying actually his dream is to sign and one day captain Liverpool. So let's see what develops. I think it was just a sort of reaction to all the noise that is being generated by certain Real Madrid favoured media in Spain. So I think it's still up in the air. I think it's the case with all three players. It seems to change on an almost daily basis as to whether 1, 2 or 3 will sign or go. It's not a great position. And I see there's some noise on social media that Richard Hughes, the sporting director, is getting a bit stick about it. It's not really his problem. It's a problem he inherited from the previous regime, and he's doing his best to try and deal with it.
Yeah, he's done a really bad job, hasn't he? He selected Arne Slot as the manager.
And Areola, no?
And Areola, and signed all the players down at Bournemouth. Yeah, I mean,
some fans are never happy.
Him. Yeah, listen. I understand why they're frustrated, because they want those players to sign new contracts. They want to keep them there. Fair enough. I'd want to keep them too. I want to keep this team together if I was Arne Slot. Maybe Arne Slot doesn't want all of them. Maybe he only wants 2 of them. Maybe only wants 1 of them. I don't know. But it's a good negotiating position. The good thing about what Liverpool do, and Michael Edwards falls into this category as well, is they never say anything. You never hear from them. You never get to talk to them. They keep their mouths shut. They don't they're not in the ear of all the press people. They just keep it stum and they get on with their job. Everton beaten at home by Nottingham Forest. Brilliant. I mean, I've got to say, the ball from Gibbs White to eventually get it up towards Chris Wood. Great finish from him. Terrific. Do we think that Forest, and then Gibbs White playing a part, obviously scoring the second goal, do we think that Forest can compete for the top 5 here, Scott, now, and Champions League football? Is that a possibility, or is that an overestimation? Do they just have to try and get some sort of European football?
No, I think now we are halfway through the season. I genuinely believe, I mean, I don't believe they'll be first or second, probably not even third. But I absolutely think with the season they've had so far now, they can finish top 5. A European place would be amazing, considering what we all sort of thought at the start of the season. But now, and again, I saw the comparisons to where Leicester were at the halfway stage, and I think Forest are only 2 points behind what Leicester did. But obviously, look at Liverpool this particular season; they're outstanding. there's no reason why they've played everyone once now. There's no reason why they can't go on and finish in that 5th position. As you say, 97 point whatever % chance that'd be a Champions League place. It's amazing. Again, we talk about the lack of confidence and when things are going wrong. Good players, and Manchester United do have good players, how bad they can look. But it's amazing also when you've got that momentum and you've got that confidence and you're not thinking, you're just doing. There's no pressure on Forest whatsoever. And Nuno has done a fantastic job blending brilliant defence with fantastic pace and counter-attack. And with Chris Wood on fire, the only thing is if you get key players out injured in the second half of the season, then they could fall out because the strength and depth is not the same. But could they finish top 5? Absolutely.
Interesting to see what happens when the FA Cup comes around and what sort of team that he fields during that, because I think we all suspect that he may well go very light in terms of his first teamers when it comes to that campaign. Just before we go, quick nod to Sir Gareth Southgate. Congratulations on his knighthood. A lot of people are sort of having debates about whether it's deserved or not. I think the idea that that's even a debate is ludicrous. Go back, review the man's career. He has been knighted for his services to football. This is a guy who played in a European Championship semi-final, overcame terrible adversity after missing a key penalty in that semi-final, brought a elite performance program into the England football team at a very young age, got youth teams winning, under 21s winning for the first time in many, many years, and then carried on that good work into the senior team and made England hope again. I mean, you have to be the biggest killjoy of all time if you don't think he deserves that knighthood. Alex Crook.
Listen, I'm nonplussed either way, to be honest. Is he on a par with Sir Alex Ferguson and Sir Bobby Robson with what he achieved in the game? No. So I guess if you're judging it on merit, then maybe a slightly lesser gong would have been preferable.
That's not how it works, is it? That isn't how it works. It's not like,
I like my knights to be winners, I guess. I like my knights to be winners. You know, Sir Andy Murray wins Wimbledon, ends that long wait for a British winner at SW19. Sir Alex Ferguson gets knighted after winning the treble. Sir Bobby Robson achieved great things in his career and won major trophies.
Okay, all right. Okay, but he didn't win with England, did it? So it's not like he won with England.
No, he didn't. But you know, his body of work is there to be shot.
Sir Gareth did win a European trophy when he was at Middlesbrough as the captain.
Yeah, I don't think that's why he's been knighted.
Okay, well, you know, but I don't think Sir Bobby was knighted because he won the UEFA Cup with Ipswich, was he?
No, he was knighted more for his longevity, wasn't he? Gareth did so many good things with England.
Longest serving England manager since Walter Winterbottom.
Ultimately, he didn't win anything.
He also didn't win anything and got knighted.
Scott, do you want to come in as a sort of referee on this?
I'm enjoying listening and watching you two.
Poor old Bex that I feel sorry for. The one bloke in the country who's desperate for a knighthood and he's nowhere near it again.
I feel sorry for him as well. He should get one. He definitely deserves one. Anyway, let's move on from political appointees. I'm sure that Alex Crook will be writing on behalf of himself to nominate himself for an MBE and an OBE in the not too distant future. Scott deserves one. Scott deserves one for services to menswear. Only one Premier League game on New Year's Day this year. Brentford against Arsenal. We'll be back on Friday to look back on that and look ahead to all the weekend's football as well, including the big clash between Liverpool and Manchester United. Until then, hope you have a fantastic new year. Thanks to everyone who's listened, downloaded and watched the podcast in 2024. Support that is much appreciated. Thank you very much to our producers, Lucy and Jeremy and Joe, who do a brilliant job behind the scenes as well. We'll see you in 2025.